So I recently did a video where I analysed the CBC interview that was done by Daniel Martel's mother, Janie Mackenzie. There were a number of significant takeaways that I got from that. I felt that she was definitely resentful towards the children. It seems to me that she felt that they were intruding on her peace and quiet. The way she spoke about them being on the swing and being really noisy and the screaming and stuff like that certainly gave the impression that she really wasn't a fan of those children. I also got the impression that she was resentful of them disturbing her dog. I felt that she clearly did not like Malehya, and I also got the distinct impression that she knew what happened to those children. There were several instances in that interview where she either contradicted herself or outright lied, which of course for me is a huge red flag. That to me says that while there may be some value in listening to what she has to say, we need to be cautious because we can't trust what she has to say 100%. And yes, for those of you who are not familiar with my channel, I have no control over the snoring chihuahua in the background. So there is additional audio on Facebook where she's been answering people's questions. So it was in a chat room, and rather than type the answers, she said the answers and someone recorded them and then posted them in one of the Facebook groups. So I have all that audio. I've edited out a lot of the irrelevant stuff, but even without the irrelevant stuff, there's about half an hour's worth of audio. Now, I don't want to just go through it all in one long hit. So what I've done is I've broken it up into topics, things that I believe have some bearing on this case. So in this video, what I want to look at is her relationship with Lily and Jack, because she says one thing at one time and then a lot of the other things she says completely contradict this. I find it extremely curious, so I wanted to really dig into that and see if it has any bearing, any meaning with regards to this case. Now, I think, personally, I do believe that it is important to look at this, because if we can understand her relationship with these children, if we can understand her opinion of these children, that will help us going forward to make sense of any further statements that she might make. Now, one thing you will discover from listening to this audio is that the public persona that she put out there on the CBC interview is somewhat different from the persona that she put out there when she was speaking to these people on Facebook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin with a few clips from that CBC interview as a bit of a reference point for the rest of the clips that are included in this video.
Okay, I went and I laid down. Next thing you know, my dog started barking and the kids were out in the yard. Now you can see there's two swings where the kids play. My bedroom is right there. I heard the kids. This is where the kids' swings are. This is where they always played.
And so that's where...
That's where I heard them. And I can hear everything in that trailer. If two kids get out of a fence, and Jack and Lily are all the time yelling, especially Lily, come on, Jackie, let's go, Jackie, let's go, Jackie. It's all I hear out here.
Now, like I said, I've done a full analysis of that interview, so I'm not going to go too much in depth here. But the things that I think are important that we need to recognise here is that she's basically, from what she's saying, the impression I get is that basically she hears them all the time because they're playing directly outside of her trailer and she can see them playing from her trailer, or RV, or whatever it's called. The other thing that we hear from her is about it upsets her dog. Them being out there playing upsets her dog. And then she also talks about them being really, really loud. And Lily always, come on, Jack, let's go, Jack, that sort of thing. So she is speaking about this as an observer. She's talking about this is what she observes from inside her RV. And when she's observing this, it upsets her dog because of how loud the children are. And of course, the way she talks about it definitely sounds like someone who is complaining. Someone who is making sure that the listener understands the imposition of these children being really noisy directly outside her window, interfering with her privacy, her peace and quiet. So the impression that we get here, and from other parts of that interview, is that she basically didn't like the children, and she didn't like the amount of noise they made directly outside of her RV. She was also quite resentful of the fact that they upset her dog. I can recall 20-something years ago living in a place where I had quite a large backyard, and along the side of my property, along the fence line, was a driveway for a house that was set back off the road on the next block over. And pretty much on a daily basis, one of two things would occur. The man who lived there would get, if he realised that my dog was outside, he would get at the start of the driveway and he would rev the engine in his car to get my dog's attention. And then he would deliberately rev it along the side of along the part of his driveway that ran along my fence line, because he knew it would upset my dog and she would go berko. The other thing that happened almost on a daily basis was that his children would get on their bikes and they would ride down the driveway and they would bang on the fence and then ride up the driveway as fast as they could, because my dog would go berserk, and they would go along with a stick sometimes, run it along the fence to upset her, because they found it incredibly amusing that because she was half Kelpie, which is a Australian cattle dog, she would jump at the fence and kind of like do a specky off the fence. So she would jump up and her paws would, all four paws, would touch near the top of the fence as she was barking. She would bounce off, land on the ground, run along a bit, and then bounce again. And I swear that they thought they were going to make her jump the fence, because that's how high she was jumping. Why am I telling you this story? Well, it's another demonstration. I am showing you that these guys were utter annoying twats, or in Australian terms, bogans, and used to annoy the crap out of me. And the way Janie is talking here about the kids and their noise upsetting her dog reminded me of that story. She's definitely resentful of the fact that these children upset her dog. The really significant thing to remember from this part of the interview is that she is referring to looking out the window of her van, watching these children, not her going outside and interacting with them. And given how resentful she sounds, what are the chances of her wanting to go out and interact with them? Because generally, when you are that resentful towards children, then you're not going to be overly friendly with them.
There was a bench sitting here, or a sawhorse, it's over there, was sitting here. I was sitting on it, bawling my eyes out. I was crying because I blame myself for not getting up that morning to see the kids. Because if I would have got up, this wouldn't have never happened. I plan on putting a pool up this year for the kids. You need level ground for a pool. That's what I was doing. I was leveling out the ground to set up a pool.
So after establishing the fact that she found the children annoying and that they were too noisy and that they upset her dog, she then makes that statement of that she wished she'd got up to see them because then none of this would have happened, which is a curious statement. I've addressed that in my other video, but I just want to say here, it just seems to be a major contradiction after her basically showing that she really wasn't a fan of these children. And as for the story of levelling the ground to put in a swimming pool, I don't for 1 minute believe that. Maybe you would put in a paddling pond in the backyard, but not a full-on swimming pool. Not with two children who are under the age of 5. Because Jack was 4 and Meadow was 18 months old at the time. Even Lily being 6 would be too young. These children, as far as we know, had spent the last couple of years on that property, so they probably didn't even know how to swim. So the story of the swimming pool seems highly unlikely. The location where she says she was going to put it seems ridiculous. The notion of a swimming pool instead of a little paddling pool also seems irresponsible and ridiculous. Maybe she was considering it for her other grandchildren, but even still, in that location, if she was considering putting in some sort of pool, it certainly wouldn't have been for the benefit of Jack and Lily. And I question if that would have been the location where she would have put it. Once again, I went into that in a lot of depth in my other video. I just wanted to highlight this comment that she made, making it sound like she was super grandma doing all these things for these children.
You know, if something bad happens, you get like your heart drops. Mine hasn't dropped. Deep down in my heart, I do believe Jack and Lily are alive. It's not because of what people are saying. It's my heart tells me that they are alive.
Now, you could see at the start of that comment that she was struggling. She had the heavy, crazy breathing going on, and she was super emotional. By the end of the statement, she wasn't so emotional. Why is that? Because just before she said that, she was saying that she didn't think her son had done it, had been responsible for anything to do with these children. And she became super emotional over that. But now, when she's talking about Lily and Jack again, she's calmed down by the time she's finished the speech. I said a lot about that in my other video, but the main thing for that is that she's established already that she really wasn't a huge fan of these children. They were noisy, they disrupted her peace, they upset her dog. And this statement of, she feels it in her heart, is an echo of Belinda Gray's statement in her own interview. Belinda Gray, who is actually their grandmother. And Belinda actually said, I don't believe these children are still alive. My heart tells me they are not still alive. So to me, that statement is nothing more than a response to Belinda. And if Daniel is responsible for what occurred to those children, then of course she's going to want to believe that they are still alive, because the alternative would have to be to believe that her son did something horrible that resulted in these children no longer being alive. As I said originally, I think she knows what happened to these children, and I'll cover that in another video. But now I'm going to move on to a handful of statements that she made during this discussion with people on Facebook. And I think they are very interesting, and I've got a bit to say about them.
Yes, Daniel did do a lot for those kids. Yes, I will say that. And I will also say the only time that Jack and Lily and Meadow ever went to town is when Daniel was with them, because Malehya couldn't handle all 3 kids.
So throughout that entire audio, you hear her putting Malehya down time after time. What she's saying here is that it's Daniel who was doing everything for these children. Malehya couldn't even handle them to take them all into town at once. But notice when she's saying about the only time that Malehya would take them into town was when, and she couldn't finish the sentence, she paused. Her brain was putting on the brakes and saying, liar, liar. So I think that Malehya has managed in the past to go places with all 3 children. Sure, it would be challenging to prepare 3 young children to go somewhere. But, at 6, well, Lily would have been fairly independent in terms of getting ready to go out, and probably capable of helping with some of the getting ready. The way she pauses before she finishes her sentence when she's saying that Malehya only ever took the kids anywhere if she had Daniel to help her, to me suggests that that is actually not truthful. You don't have the flowing cadence there. As I've said in so many of my videos, the brain doesn't like to lie. So quite often when you get someone who's saying something like that and they stop and they can't finish the sentence, that's the brain saying, don't do it, don't say that lie. And I did get a sense throughout the entire video that she was trying to give the impression that Malehya was completely incapable as a mother. That's for another video though, so I won't keep going on that. But what we're getting here is again her doing the Malehya was no good with these kids. Daniel was the one who looked after them.
And I'll tell you something else. For the last 2 years, I observed those kids in my backyard. And the only time that Malehya went out with those kids is when she took Meadow out. And when she took Meadow out, that's all she would do was take her over to see the chickens. I have never seen Malehya push those kids down on the swing or even watch them go down the slide. I've never seen her out there playing with the kids.
Again, there's no suggestion of interaction here. She talks about having observed those kids in her backyard for the last 2 years. So in her brain, those kids are in her backyard. Again, it's that suggestion of them basically invading her space. In her mind, they don't belong there. And then she goes on about Malehya never actually going outside and playing with them. Malehya only giving attention to Meadow. But again, notice the cadence of what she's saying. It is not fluent. She's having trouble even getting the right names out, which to me suggests that this is not entirely truthful. Now here's a question for you, and it's something that I did raise in the past video. I questioned whether or not those children would be able to get themselves on those swings and actually swing on those swings themselves, because they're on rope, meaning they're not the easiest things to climb onto, especially if they are higher up off the ground We can't see how high up they are because they're wrapped around the bar, obviously for safety reasons. So I questioned whether or not those children would have been, the morning they went missing, able to go out there and swing on those swings unattended. And here she refers to she's never seen Malehya push them on the swing. Well, that to me suggests that they did need someone to help them out when they went on the swings. Maybe at 6, Lily was starting to learn to do that for herself. But you can bet that Jack wasn't. The pushing them on the swings and the watching them go down the slide is very, very specific. And I would like to know why she offered up that bit of information. Was that an activity that maybe they did with Daniel? There's something significant in that, but without more information, I couldn't tell you what that is. You'll note, though, that even when she's trying to say she's never seen Malehya push them on the swings or watch them go down the slides, still, you had the stilted cadence. She started saying Meadow, had to change it to Malehya, and still was pausing in between. So is it truthful that Malehya never played with them on those swings and watched them on the slide? Or is this just something that in her eyes is something that those children did frequently with a particular adult, and she's using that as a way of getting at Malehya? Not sure, like I said, I need more information there.
In the wintertime, I would go out and throw snowballs at them, build snowmans with them, build a tall snowbank for them to go sledding in. All the grandchildren. And I would try to go coasting with them, but I have some medical problems. I couldn't really go coasting with them, but I would push them down the hill in the sleigh. I would play snowballs with them. I built snowmans with them. I never seen Malehya ever do that with them.
Can we just acknowledge that Jack looks like the sort of kid that if you threw a snowball at him, it would shatter his world. He doesn't look like the sort of kid that would enjoy playing out in the snow. The only thing to me that sounds genuine there is her saying, I couldn't really go coasting with them. Why do I say that is the only thing that sounds genuine? Because, first of all, she's not using full sentences for a lot of this. She's giving a list. And it sounds to me, it's a list of things you would do in the snow. Things you would do. As in, she's not talking about things she used to do with them. This is one of the instances when we should be hearing past tense. We used to make snowmen. We used to play snowballs. But it's the constant, I would do this, I would do this, I would do this. It's like she's going through a list in her head of these are the activities that you do out in the snow. To me, it's more a case of someone saying, well, if I was going to go out and play with them in the snow, these are the things I would do. It just does not feel genuine to me. Particularly given that she has spoken about how much these kids annoy her, and particularly given her comments about the screaming and Lily's scream. Because you can bet that if you're outside playing snowballs with these kids, and Lily is a screamer, as she says, that Lily would have been doing a heck of a lot of screaming. Likewise, if coasting is like when you slide down a snowbank, which I'm guessing that's what it is, then again, Lily would have been doing a lot of screaming. This is something that she did not like. So I cannot see her participating in any of these activities with these children. And yes, it is possible that Malehya probably wasn't playing out in the snow with them for the 2 years that they were there. Because the first winter that they would have been there, Meadow would have been a baby. So she wouldn't have been able to take Meadow out in the snow all that much. She certainly wouldn't have been able to take her out in the snow and just lie her on a blanket in the snow while she plays with the other two children. And then, obviously, the second winter, Meadow still would have been a little baby, a little toddler. She would have needed to have had her eyes on Meadow, been paying attention to Meadow. So yes, it's possible that she probably couldn't play with them out in the snow for those 2 winters because she had a little one to look after. That doesn't make her a bad mother. But according to Janie, she's the one who did stuff out in the snow with these children while Malehya just ignored them, even though what we've heard from her shows that she really did not like these children.
When she was out watching them coast, she was pulling Meadow around in the sleigh. After Meadow was born, yes, Meadow got all the attention. I seen that with my own 2 eyes, yes. Jack and Lily were sort of put on the back burner, yes.
So she's admitting here that Malehya actually would go outside and play with them. And she would obviously have to entertain Meadow because Meadow couldn't entertain herself. Like I said, you can hardly just sit a baby down in the snow and say, you just go and play there in the snow, get yourself all soggy and wet while I go and play with these 2 older children who can actually play with each other and I could just watch. So again, she's skewing it to make it sound like Malehya really didn't care for Lily and Jack and that all the attention was on Meadow. But we need to acknowledge the fact that obviously Meadow would have needed a little bit more attention than Lily and Jack at times because of her age. My feeling here is that this is a continuation of the gaslighting that we heard from Daniel. Both of them have been working their asses off to discredit Malehya in every way possible.
I've never seen, when I would go in there after school, I would never see Malehya sit down and do their homework with them. I would never see Malehya read to them. I would always read to them when I would babysit them. Yes, I babysit Jack and Lily.
I'm going to put a pin in this one for a moment. She's basically saying when she goes into the house after the kids get back from school, Malehya's not helping them with their homework, not reading to them. She's the one who reads to them. I do want to point out, what school is going to give a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old homework? Unless it is something that is play-based, that involves doing something with the parent anyway. But like I said, I just want to put a pin in this one, come back to it.
Whenever they went somewhere, I would babysit them. And I had no problem with Jack and Lily. Jack and Lily would sit with me and watch TV. I would take Jack. He would hold him in my arms. He would pretend he was swimming. He would pretend he was playing airplane. Lily would be running around showing me her dolls. And, yes, I did more interaction with those children than Malehya did.
First of all, it's interesting that she offers up that she had no problem with those children. Because this is something that's been pushed from the get-go, that Malehya couldn't control those children and Daniel was the one who could control them. He's the one who had to be the disciplinarian. And now she's also the one who could control the children, not Malehya. That to me is actually incredibly concerning because so often we hear of cases where children end up not alive or they go missing, and we eventually find out that the new partner has been overly harsh with their behaviour management. And not only that, but in doing so, they've also gaslit the biological parent of those children and convinced them that they were inadequate as a parent. that they weren't adequately disciplining the children. And from hearing comments like this from her and Daniel, I am extremely concerned that this is what may have been going on here. That he may have been overly harsh in his punishment of these children. And that in her interactions, Janie, with these children, she may also have been overly harsh with them. Now, talking about babysitting them. Again, she reverts back to the would statements. Again, it feels like her saying these are the things that she would expect them to be doing were she to actually be babysitting them. These are the things that Jack would probably do. These are the things that Lily would probably do. I'm not hearing anything that sounds like real interactions, like real experiences. To me, it sounds again like a hypothetical list. And again, there is that lack of fluency in the way she's speaking. The cadence is once again interrupted as she is giving this narration. Maybe there was one experience of babysitting these children, but I really doubt that it was a regular occurrence, particularly given her expression with regards to her opinion of Malehya. Because I doubt very much that Malehya would ever have asked her to babysit these children for her.
My dog does not like Lily's loud scream, just like any dog would not like Lily's loud scream. I can't stand Lily's loud scream. If you watched her birthday party, the way she screamed, could you stand Lily's scream all the time? My dog reacts. My dog tells me when there's people in the yard. My dog tells me when the kids are outside. My dog is really sensitive because he's so used to being all alone here for the last for whenever the kids showed up here 2 years ago. My dog has been used to quietness. When Jack and Lily moved in here, my dog got more sensitive to sounds because of the kids yelling, screaming. So yes, my dog is very sensitive to Lily's scream and Jack screaming or talking.
Again, she talks about Lily screaming all the time and about Jack's talking, meaning that it sounds like she's saying that Jack was quite loud when he spoke. And she says a heck of a lot about how much those kids upset her dog because of how loud they were. You can tell from that statement, the biggest takeaway from that statement is serious resentment towards those children because of Lily's scream, because of Jack's loud voice, because they upset her dog, and because she cannot stand Lily's scream, which according to her is all the time. So you have her claiming that she plays with the children. You have her claiming that she babysits the children. But then, on the other hand, she basically talks about the children in a way that shows that she really does not like them. She resents them being there on her property.
Belinda said that she came and she said that I was crying and I blame myself for it, and this is the time that I wouldn't let the police in, said that I wouldn't let the police in my RV. Well, the reason why I was crying, Belinda, is I blame myself for not getting up that morning and seeing the kids. Because whenever they're outside, I'm usually out there. I'm the one watching those kids. I watch those kids out in the yard every day. That's why I blame myself for not getting up that day. If I would have got up, this would have never happened. So that's why I was crying that day, Belinda, is because I blame myself for not getting up for those kids.
So here, she's claiming that whenever they were outside, she's usually out there with them, watching them, which directly contradicts several of the things that she said. Her comment about her observing them in her backyard. When you talk about observing something, that is a passive reaction. When I'm sitting here doing a recording, quite often there'll be a rosella, which is like a kind of Australian, sort of like a parrot kind of bird, very colourful bird, gets out in the tree outside my window. And yes, I quite often observe that while I'm working on these videos, because that is a passive thing that I'm doing. And where she says observes them in her backyard, that definitely gives the impression to me of her being inside her RV observing them. Not watching them, not out there interacting with them. She's already said how annoying she finds them because of Lily's scream and the yelling. Multiple times, the way she's referred to them essentially is that she sees them from inside her RV because they go on the swing and she can see them from there. She also has on several occasions now referred to how much they distress her dog. So she cares a lot about this dog, quite clearly. And she's just going to, shut the dog in the RV and go out and play with the kids and let the dog stay inside and be distressed? I don't think so. If that dog is distressed because of the children being noisy, then based on the way she's talking about that dog, the only possibilities I see is that either she's going to stay with the dog to keep it calm, or she's going to yell at those children to be quiet and go play elsewhere. It's pretty clear that whatever else you take away about this woman, she loves that dog. That dog is the centre of her universe. That dog is going to come first for her. She's not going to leave that dog stressed out in the RV and go out and play with those children. And like I said, so many other things that she said suggest that she wouldn't want to go out and play with those children anyway.
And I'll tell you something else, and I don't care if you believe me or not. I would never, ever, ever let anything happen to those kids. I watched them for 2 years. I seen them day in and day out. What went on between Malehya and Daniel has nothing to do with me. I live here in the camper. They live in the trailer. What went on in there is none of my business. And when you have to call your kids, or Jack and Lily's mother, and tell them that Jack has his boots off and Jack has his coats off, does that tell you that Malehya was watching the kids? So don't come down on me because they weren't my grandchildren, but that I do, and I do consider them my grandchildren. I don't care what anybody says. When they came into my life, they became part of my family. So if people doubt that, then they don't think very much of me, because I'm not that kind of a person.
Okay, I needed to play all that through together because it does all connect. But there's a lot to unpack here. Now, she's using a classic narcissistic manipulation strategy here that I have seen used so many times. And that is if you make accusations against me, I am so vulnerable, you're the bad person here. Listen to how vulnerable I am. So she says, I don't care if you believe me or not. Meaning, you have to believe me. She does care. This is a classic manipulation tactic saying, I'm telling the truth, so I don't care if you don't believe me or not. And I'm going to add so much emotion into my voice But you don't hear her at all struggling to catch her breath. You don't hear her doing that snotty gasp that someone does when they are actually crying. It is a put-on voice. The goal here is to basically make people feel that they're the bad person if they don't believe her. They are less than human if they don't believe her, because look at how upset she is. It is a tactic I have seen so often from people when they are trying to manipulate, when they are basically trying to get their own way. It is narcissism 101. And she says that she would never let anything happen to those children. And you know what? I suspect that she's telling the truth there. Because I think whatever happened to them, she wasn't part of it. She just knows what happened. Maybe she observed it, maybe she didn't. But whatever it was, I don't believe she had a direct role. I do believe that she knows exactly what happened. And then she talks about, I saw them day in, day out. Again, going back to, I played with them every day. I went out there and interacted with them every day. When we can tell from everything that she's said that the truth of the matter is that she observed them outside playing because they played near her RV. They were noisy, they annoyed the crap out of her and upset her dog. But of course, saying that isn't going to elicit any sympathy for her. It's not going to help sell her story. So instead, she's the caring person who saw them day in, day out. Now, one thing that she says here that is really important. She talks about she was in her camper, they were in the trailer. What went on in there was none of her business. Now, that's important for a few things. First of all, she has said this straight after saying she would never let anything happen to them. She's distancing herself here. Something happened to those children in that trailer. And she's saying none of her business. She's up there in the RV. It's none of her business what goes on down there. I think basically we've just had a leaked truth here. Whatever happened to those children happened inside that trailer. And she's making it clear it didn't happen on her watch. She didn't let anything happen to those children. It happened in that trailer, and that's none of her business because she lives in the RV and she doesn't let those two worlds connect. But remember a little while ago I said I wanted to put a pin in a statement that she made. That was her comment about how she goes down to the trailer every day when the kids get home from school to see them. And she's the one who reads to them, and Malehya doesn't do anything with them. But now she's basically made it pretty clear that what goes on in that trailer, that's got nothing to do with her. She's up there in the RV. That's her world, that's their world. She's making a very clear distinction here that she has nothing to do with them down in that trailer, after claiming that she goes down there every day after school and interacts with the children. Given that she makes it clear at one point in this whole discussion that she really doesn't like Malehya and that her and Malehya don't even speak, the likelihood of her going down into the trailer when these kids get home from school is even more reduced. Now, she produces a story here that is designed to show Malehya as being the bad mum. She talks about having to call her and tell her that Jack has his boots and coats off. She gives a really clear indication of her relationship with Malehya there because she doesn't refer to her as Malehya. She refers to her as Jack and Lily's mother, like she's a stranger. Like these kids are the kids next door, and she knows their name, but she doesn't know the name of their mother, and she's going to ring their mother because from where she's watching them, she can see that the little boy's got his boots off. So that shows you a few things. First of all, it demonstrates her relationship with Malehya. But not only that, if she has to call Malehya to tell her Jack has got his boots and coat off, that to me says that she doesn't go out there and play with these kids every day. Because what would your reaction be if you were outside with these kids? If you were the person supervising these kids? You wouldn't be ringing the mother and saying, like, obviously going into your RV or pulling out your mobile phone. I don't know what it is. But you wouldn't be stopping, ringing the mother and saying, Jack's got his boots and coats off. You would be, if you were the one who apparently was watching them every day, taking responsibility for them every day, you'd be there going, Jack, let's get your boots back on. Jack, let's put your coat back on. So that straight away shows you that she was not doing these interactions that she claims she was. She didn't have the sort of relationship with these children where she could then turn around and tell Jack to put his boots back on or put his coat back on. Or even tell him, don't take your boots off. She had to ring Malehya. That shows you that she had a very, very limited relationship with these children. So in attempting to discredit Malehya, she's actually proven that the statements she's made before are not truthful. And then we get this classic line from her. Don't come down on me because they weren't my grandchildren. Past tense. She's talking about them in the past tense. They weren't her grandchildren. But then she realises what she's said and she tries to fix it and she overcompensates. Instead of going, but they felt like they were my grandchildren, she just goes over the top with it. You get the pause, which is clearly when she realises she's messed up and said, don't look at me, they weren't my grandchildren, it's nothing to do with me. And then she says, oh, but I do consider them my grandchildren. When they came into my life, they became part of my family. I don't believe that at all, because you can tell everything she has said puts them and Malehya separate from her and her family. They are intruders on her property. But she's going to double down on that. She wants people to believe her. So she says to them, if you doubt me, then you really can't think very much of me. And while she's saying that, she's putting on that voice at the same time. This is classic emotional manipulation. It is intended to stop people from questioning her. And note that this is in response to a conversation on a Facebook chat group where people were asking her questions. And she has had people questioning the validity of her story. So how does a narcissist deal with that? They do the guilt trip. You're the bad person if you are questioning me, because you're hurting me to the core by questioning what I'm saying. It is emotional, psychological manipulation. The whole point of that statement is to shut down any more questions, to shut down any more criticism, to make people feel that if they dare question or criticise now, they are going to be the worst people in the world. And of course, for people who are not used to that sort of manipulation, those sorts of interactions, that is a powerful way of controlling someone. And a lot of people, if they aren't aware of what's going on here, that will shut them down immediately. Because we have this goodness in us. We don't want to be the bad person. We don't want to be the person who is criticising an innocent person. But the thing is, when you start to actually think about it, when you use a little bit of logical, critical thinking, you can see what is going on here, and it is outright manipulation. She's given so many clear indications of the fact that she resented these children. She didn't like their noise. She didn't like them being in her place. She didn't like Malehya. But now she's asking people to believe her when she claims that to her they were family.
And yes, Justin did cry because I was crying. And Justin felt bad for me because I was blaming myself for not getting up and checking on Jack and Lily.
I really don't know what to think of this whole constant insistence that she blames herself for not getting up and checking on Jack and Lily. Especially because I believe that what occurred to Jack and Lily happened the night before. So I don't know if this is just an attempt to redirect and to convince people that it happened that morning, or what is going on there. But she keeps emphasising this. This is something significant, and I hope that whatever behaviour analysts, whatever speech analysts that are working with the Mounties have picked up on this, and that when they did question her about this whole case, that they did question her about this statement, because it is significant. And I think it is something that if they've not followed up on it, they need to follow up. They need to question her further about this. They need to prod a little bit deeper. It certainly feels out of place, given her other comments about the children, given the fact that she really doesn't seem to be a fan of these children. I should point out also, because it comes out more in that statement, her trying to give the impression that she's distraught, that she's in tears. She's doing the opposite of what you would expect. First of all, like I said, there's no gasping for air, there's no pauses in her speech. But not only that, instead of hearing the voice become quieter and having to really struggle to hear what she's saying, she's pretty much yelling. Her tone actually sounds more aggressive as opposed to being distraught.
The reason why is, if any of you have watched Malehya's video of her when she was a teenager and the way she talked about things is the way she is now. Malehya and I could not sit down and have a conversation. If it was just a brief conversation. When I first met her, when Daniel introduced me to her and the kids, it was okay. My personal opinion of her, I'm not gonna say. But let me just say, when Meadow was born, when I would go in there to see Meadow, and I would hold Meadow, she would always come and take Meadow from me and say, oh, she has to be fed or she has to be changed. She would go in the bedroom and she wouldn't come out until I would leave. When the grandfather came to see Meadow, she would do the same thing. When it came to Meadow, Meadow was hers.
Okay, from listening to that, it is really, really clear what the relationship was between her and Malehya. They did not like each other. There was animosity between them to the point where they would not communicate. She's making this comment about, oh, Meadow was hers. If she went there into the house when Meadow was first born, Malehya would take Meadow away. Well, that says to me that, in fact, there was a bit of maternal instinct kicking in, and Malehya's first instinct was to get her baby away from this woman because she did not like this woman and she didn't want this woman having anything to do with her children. And yet Janie claims that she was best friends with Jack and Lily, almost. The way she talks about playing with them out in the yard and going into the house every day after school. She says, I'm not going to tell you what I think of Malehya, but she's basically just said it. She did not like Malehya. The pair of them did not get along. There's no way Malehya would have tolerated her going into the house every day to read to her children or play with her children. There's no way Malehya would have chosen for her to babysit Jack and Lily unless there was absolutely no choice whatsoever. And in that case, probably it would have been with her being persuaded by Daniel. There's no way that this woman saw Malehya or her two elder children as being even remotely part of her family.
No, I'm sorry, I don't have any pictures of Jack and Lily to share with you. I'm sorry. I don't really have any pictures of my other two grandchildren. And because I got to see them, the only pictures that I even have of that I get pictures of is my other two grandchildren. I don't have any pictures of Jack and Lily. No, I'm sorry. I got to see them every day. Every day. So, no, I'm sorry. Malehya would be the only one that would have any up-to-date pictures of Jack and Lily.
Supposedly she's the one who was outside with these kids, supervising them, playing with them every day. She's the one who would go down and spend time with them every day after school. When they got home from school, she'd read to them or play with them. And she's got no pictures. She said, well, it's because she saw them every day. But these are little kids. Little kids do ridiculous things. Little kids do hilarious things. And if you are with them every day, there's bound to be those moments when they do something so utterly hilarious or so utterly ridiculous that you are going to take a photo. So, hearing her say she's got no photos whatsoever, again, says to me, well, the relationship wasn't all that good. So from listening to all these clips, my takeaway is that definitely the relationship between Malehya and Janie was pretty much non-existent. There was some serious animosity between the two. And as for her claims of doing all these things for the kids, playing with them out in the snow, putting up a pool for them, being out there playing with them every day, I think she is much, much closer to the truth when she talks about them being outside her RV, her watching them from the RV and being able to hear them from the RV because of how very loud they were and how much they upset her dog. This woman resented these children. They came into her world and they interrupted her peace and tranquility. They were noisy. They were not part of her family. I don't believe that she had much of an emotional connection to them whatsoever. Everything I hear makes me think she resented these children and she resented Malehya. Also, based on what she's said, I don't believe that she was involved directly with whatever occurred to these children, but I do believe that she is fully aware of whatever that was. Now, I know there's going to be people who come at me for what I've said in this video, and I will just say I'm expressing my opinion based on what I've heard said in these various clips. My opinion might not be right, and I'm more than happy to be proven wrong when these children are found and returned home safe and tell everyone how much they missed their granny. But I think that is doubtful. I have eyes on all three of the people who were on that property when those children went missing, and that includes this woman. And I believe that she is attempting to manipulate the narrative in favour of her son, and I do believe she is being somewhat deceptive in what she is telling people. Right now, the only person that I can attach any credibility to in this case is Belinda Gray. Honestly, I felt that she was completely honest in her interview. I've heard snippets of what she said on a particular channel that dragged her in, and I do believe that she has been truthful right through. I feel angry that she is being manipulated and used for pushing a narrative, and that when people can't manipulate her and use her, that they then try to discredit her. It makes me sad that this grandmother, who genuinely cares about these children, is being targeted and used in a way that she is. I do feel that part of the reason for Janie coming out was a direct reaction to Belinda speaking up, because the things that Belinda said tended to reflect better on Malehya than on Daniel. And until that point in time, the narrative that was being put out there was being controlled by Daniel and by the people around Daniel. Like I said, this is only a part of the audio that I have of Janie, and I will be doing more videos looking at it in terms of topics, so keep an eye out for that. I will of course also be putting out more of those shorter videos where I focus on just one thing. So that brings us to the end of this video. So if you are new, please, if you like my videos, subscribe. That way you won't miss any of my videos as they come out. Of course, also please hit that like button. Like I said, that helps me get these videos out there into the algorithm, helps me get them seen by more people. And also please leave a comment below. That also helps boost my channel, get my content out there for people to see. So on that note, thank you for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.